Welcome. Today we're going to add one more type of research to our list, correlational research. And when I say that we're going to be adding one more type of research to our list, you might be thinking, isn't the list getting a little bit long already? And it is, because we have covered several types of research already in our class. For example, at the beginning of the semester, we talked about the difference between primary and secondary research. We learned that primary research is when a researcher gathers new information that has never been gathered before, such as by doing a survey or an experiment. We learned that secondary research is research in which a person gathers information from published sources, like articles, books, websites. And after we learned about the difference between primary and secondary research, we learned that the two major types of primary research are experimental and non-experimental. And then after that, we began to learn about different types of non-experimental research. For example, we learned about naturalistic observation, and then we learned about participant observation, and then we learned about survey research. Today we're going to learn about one more type of non-experimental research called correlational research. And just like all types of non-experimental research, correlational research is low in internal validity. It doesn't lead to a solid cause and effect conclusion. And later in this topic, we're going to go into detail about exactly why that's the case. We're going to go into some detail about why a correlational study doesn't lead to a solid cause and effect conclusion. And I wanted to mention that a lot of you probably already have an idea or sort of an intuitive idea of what correlational research involves, because if you already know the meaning of the term correlation, which I'm sure at least some of you do, then you probably already have an idea of what correlational research involves, because if the word correlation is in the name, then correlational research must have to do with examining correlations. And if that's what you're thinking, then you're correct. Correlational research is research in which a person gathers a set of data and then looks at that data to find correlations. And there will be several different parts to this topic. This topic will be broken into a few different sections. First, we'll talk about the meaning of the term correlation, because you have to understand the meaning of the term correlation before you can understand correlational research, because correlational research is when a person looks at correlations. After you understand the meaning of the term correlation, we'll talk about different types of correlations, because there isn't just one type of correlation that can be seen in a set of data. After we learn about the different types of correlations, we'll talk about how a researcher analyzes a set of data in a correlational study. We'll talk about how a researcher takes a set of data and then looks at that data to find what correlations exist inside that set of data. Then at the end, we'll talk about exactly why a correlational study doesn't lead to a confident cause and effect conclusion. So I said we'll start by talking about the meaning of the term correlation. So let me give the definition of the term correlation. A correlation is a relationship between two variables. And when I say it's a relationship between two variables, I mean it's a relationship between two concepts like education and income. For example, if you hear a person say that there's a correlation between education and income, what the person is saying is that those two concepts are related. And before we move on, I wanted to share a really simple definition of a correlation in plain language, or in language that's as plain as possible, because I think that I think that some concepts and research methods or statistics become a lot more clear when they're described in really plain language, because when when they're described in really plain language, it allows you to really see the essence of the concept. So a correlation is just a tendency for two things to go along with each other. It's a tendency for two things to go hand in hand. That's a really simple definition of a correlation. So if two things are related, they just go hand in hand. And I wanted to share at least a couple of examples of things that tend to go hand in hand. Well, we know that people who go to college pay tuition. So going to college and paying tuition go along with each other. They go hand in hand. When a person is doing one, they're probably doing the other. So those two things are correlated. There's a correlation between college attendance and money spent on tuition. Also, taking a large number of classes in college and having little free time go hand in hand. If a person is doing one, they're probably doing the other. So those two things are also correlated. There's a correlation between taking a lot of classes and having little free time. So these are just all examples of things that tend to go along with each other. And right now, I wanted to talk a little bit about why we care about correlations in everyday life or in the real world. I want to talk about why correlations are useful in real life. Correlations are useful because they allow people to make predictions. Correlations make the world at least somewhat predictable. And what I'm saying is, if is if you know that two variables are correlated, like um, like going to like number of classes and amount of money spent on tuition, you can take a person's value on the first variable and use it to predict the second variable, and you can be at least somewhat confident your prediction